Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. This is the second episode of Analogue Archives, and the first time, if you're tuning in on YouTube or wherever you get your sexy video, that you get to see the faces of my colleagues, Imran Mirza and Stuart Giblin, and myself, but that's less important. And in this episode, we are talking about the film, which I'm going to blame Imran for because I feel like this was kind of very much his choice.
It was.
But we are talking about the 1985 action martial arts film Gymkata. Is that the right pronunciation, Gymkata?
I think it was probably more Carter, Gymkata.
Gymkata. Okay.
I think because Carter is a karate, the form, right? The and it's a kata, the kata. So Gymkata, gymnastics, karate, gymnastics, kata. Yeah.
So Gymkatta, yeah.
Gymkata.
I think I went to school with him, actually. Sounds familiar.
Wasn't he a geography teacher?
No, he was in the bill. I know it was Jim Carver.
Excellent. Well, I didn't realise that the title had a bit more meaning than I thought. But it is directed by Robert Clouse. It is based on a novel. I mean, I think we all can't believe that it's based on a 1957 novel by Dan Tyler Moore called The Terrible Game, which I would say is a much better title. So I guess they weren't allowed to license that part to give it that title. But it's based on it's an actor called Kurt Thomas who unfortunately passed away. I'm going to say quite recently, but maybe it wasn't quite recently. Was that a coincidence that we found out that he was no longer with us, or was that?
I think
no, it was the
circumstance,
supporting guy, Richard Norton. The other guy
Oh, it
passed
was
away
Richard
recently.
Norton. It wasn't Kurt Thomas.
He popped up on a feed because I think he was like a bodyguard to the stars or something, you know.
Oh,
and he just
okay.
happened to pop up. Do you remember by coincidence as we were discussing this?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I've killed off poor old Kurt Thomas. I apologise, Kurt.
Oh no,
he's already dead.
Kurt Thomas has since passed.
Well, since the show started.
No. In 2020, Kurt Thomas has passed away 5 years ago as of this recording. But Richard Norton was mildly more.
It's like, oh, hang on, we've just lost another one. Yeah.
Who else has died in the last 2 minutes? Oh no, we've really. This is disrespectful. I apologise for us getting this wrong. But yes, the late and great Kurt Thomas played a character called Jonathan Cabot. I hope that's right. Who happens to be, and this is where we get into what an incredible concept this film is. He happens to be an Olympic gymnast who combines that ability with martial arts, and for reasons unbeknownst to probably any of us, he enters a deadly competition in a fictional country called Parmesan, which is, I googled it, it's not a form of cheese. It does sound quite edible. And yeah, it's I don't want to get too far into it because I want to get your opinion, so I don't want to set it up too much. But yeah, this is basically a kung fu action film with gymnastic stunts set in a fictional kind of semi-medieval land where they have to play a game to the death, and we'll expand on that as we talk more about it, because yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So right, I think we need to sort of give a bit more lowdown on what we thought of this. So Stu, I'm going to go to you first because I know Imran's a big fanboy, so we can kind of go to the more positive stuff with him. But Stu, what were your opinions on Gymkata?
Before I say anything, I did actually quite enjoy it, even though it's a completely mad concept, you know. I think the biggest, I mean, there's a lot wrong with it. We, maybe we could spend an hour talking about, but my initial thoughts were it is a film that had quite a big identity crisis. I wrote down like, was it an action film? Was it a comedy? Was it a horror film? At one point, I thought I was watching a computer game. It was just so like the styles. It was changing so much, and it could have. When you actually think of the concept, it could have actually been quite good. And I actually wonder if if it was rebooted in the style of like the Hunger Games or something, could actually make quite a good film. And they were trying to make it like incredibly tense, but like we'll come onto the game in a bit. But what they ended up with was a really dangerous looking sports day for school, like a sort of, do you know what I mean? Like they were trying to make it super
It's
tense.
dangerous sports day. Oh,
And the other thing as well that really made me laugh about the sort of style of it was at certain points it had a bit of a sort of Bollywood feel about it as well. Like some of the stunts and the sort of just something about it. It felt a bit like Bollywood does the Hunger Games. Um, it was, yeah, it was a very strange. Having said all that, I did actually quite enjoy watching it. More so than the last one we did. I actually found myself wanting to know what happened next, and I think it's because I found it entertaining, even though it was completely strange and mad.
it's very camp, wasn't it?
Yeah,
There's
and I
something
was,
very camp about it.
and again, I don't think it was supposed to be a comedy, but there were so many points I found myself really laughing. Like the one that sticks to my mind, I don't know the character was when they finally get to the Palmerston or whatever it's called, and there was some sort of angry locals, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. It's just a bit of anti-American sentiment. It'll be fine. It'll soon boil over." And then he gets like an arrow shot through, and it was unfortunate, like Carry On film at that point, and it was just like, is this supposed to be funny, But so
Hang on, I think I've got that. I've got that clip. Shall I
have
play
you? All
that
right,
clip?
I'll wait. Okay,
Okay, hang on. I'm going to
that's
play
my
that.
initial reaction.
Hang on.
You are American. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't bother, John. It might start a big riot.
So much for terrible nightlife.
Well, there's just a little anti-American sentiment running around. But I think...
It was one of my favourite bits. With the guy just saying, "Oh, there's a lot of anti-American sentiment."
I mean, pardon the pun, but I really just didn't see that coming at all. Yeah, obviously,
It was an arrow in the back or in the front. I can't remember.
It was the front. It was in the market, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the front. Yeah. Nice, good moment.
But to sum it up in a sentence, I enjoyed it for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't supposed to be funny, but I found it entertaining and funny. But strange film. Be interested to know what you thought.
Well, before we come on to that, I think we were speaking just beforehand about the incredible setup, because it must have. I was trying to work out when it came out. Did it come out after Running Man? It definitely came out before the Hunger Games and before what's the one, Battle Royale. So the fact it kind of stacks up some of these things, but it obviously did come out after Star Wars, and I say that because the reason for them wanting to win this tournament on this island is just explained in this clip. So there aren't that many of these clips, so don't worry.
A Star Wars satellite station inside Parmistan could monitor all the other satellites around the world. It would be the ultimate early warning system in case of nuclear attack. Now, in our hands, such a system could save millions of lives. But in the wrong hands.
It could destroy an entire nation.
Exactly. Now, the Khan is being challenged inside his country by a radical group. They'd like to open the borders and sell the satellite station to the other side.
Why don't we send in the troops?
Direct military action is out of style, my friend. Finesse. But there is one chance for one man. Anyone who enters Parmistan must play the game. If he wins, he's allowed his life and one request.
It's just the fact that is there any geographical location on the planet where you'd say, oh, that's an amazing place to connect to an interstellar satellite array that can avoid nuclear war. But what a brilliant concept, and they're fighting over the right to inhabit or keep control of this very medieval country and play a tournament to the death. And if you win it, this guy's at the end of surviving the most grueling, horrible challenges where everyone else dies. His thing at the end is like, oh, thank God I've done it. Is it all right if we use the satellite array in this country and keep control of it so that we can stop the bad guys from deploying nuclear weapons? Just incredible. Well, I'm going to shut up. Imran, I know this is possibly one of your favorite ever films, and you've got the Blu-ray, the 4K edition, the special edition. You've got a cutout of the lead actor in your bedroom. So what are your thoughts?
My affection for the film has been misrepresented. I basically it fell on my radar like a year or so ago. I fell down the.
Did it fall on your satellite?
Oh yes, oh yes. It fell on my satellite about a year or so ago because I kind of went down the wormhole of, I think through YouTube, you know, that you get those films so bad they're good, and you know, another film I've seen more. I feel like I've seen half of the film, but just from clips. But there's Samurai Cop, for example, and The Room, and I've just sort of fell down this wormhole of just these just insane balmy movies of just like I didn't even know these things existed, and you watch so much of it, they're just really, you know, just crazy, just it's sort of completely insane kind of premise and performance and everything. And Gymkata kind of got lumped into that, and I had seen some clips online, and it looked hilarious, the idea of you're a gymnast so you can save the world via martial arts techniques. Like, of course, let's pair these two things together. That's a surefire sign of success. So I seen clips and just it looked hilarious. I actually thought I would put it more. I didn't really put it in that category of so bad it's good, if you know what I mean. It was sort of it was certainly of its time, where I think a lot of 80s action kind of felt, this is literally an example of we can do anything. We can do anything and it's going to work. And sometimes you almost feel like, wow, this didn't work. And you can almost feel the surprise of studio executives around, around Hollywood going, wow, I can't believe we're not on Gymkata 7 by now. But it is funny. It's hilarious that it came from a book. And I looked up the book. I tried to find, I'd love to read it. It came out in 1957, and apparently it's really good. It is not about a gymnast. It is about it is about a fake country called Palmerston. It is wanted by the government for the purposes of it's not space. It's about nuclear weapons and things like that. That's the angle for it. But apparently it's really good. And I was reading all these reviews on like Amazon and some other sites about people like, I read this when I was 10. We did it in school. It's so much fun. And everyone who loved Gymkata said this book is terrible. Everyone who read the book says don't watch Gymkata because this is not the source material for that. What that is just a completely different thing. But again, I would love to find out, I don't know if we ever can, but who paired these things together? The idea that you wanted to make a movie star from this Olympic gymnast and say, we need the right vehicle for this guy. And then they find this book and think, we'll make you martial arts action star. It's such a strange kind of pairing of someone's had, took the rest of the day off, I imagine, like, well, hey, this is what we'll do. We found a book and we're going to call it Gymkata and we're going to merge these worlds, and it's surefire success. But I'd love to know more about who put that together, who made that connection. It's just so funny. But yeah, no, shout out to, I guess, the original Terrible Game. because it does seem like it has an affection for people, certainly from like nostalgia. People that read it, but you can't get it on electronic versions at the moment, and hard copies go for like 70-80 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to read it, but yeah, so it's that was, so yes, I take responsibility for Gymkata on that premise, but I almost thought it would be more badder so that it was more gooder. But it was just like not really great. But here's my revelation. I think, like Stu, I have to say it, if I was 9 or 10, if I had seen this film then, I think I would have loved it.
Yeah,
I really think I wouldn't have seen through it. I would have totally loved it. And I would have just looked back at it and said, that was a great movie. And then maybe if I hadn't watched it for 30 years, I would have gone, oh, that's not how I remember it. Or maybe I still would love it. I don't know. But if I'd seen it back when it came out, oh my God. But just to say, it came out, you mentioned Running Man very astutely. Running Man came out about 2 years later, and Running Man was based on a book that came out in the early 80s. So again, the Terrible Game precedes it. Yeah, Terrible Game precedes this by some decades. So amazing.
That's interesting. So Stephen King, obviously he was on a different alias when he wrote the book, but he ripped off The Terrible Game. I mean,
he might not have known it existed in his defense. I don't think this was a sensation of the 50s. In his defense, he might not have known.
He's like, no one's ever going to read this book. Brilliant.
There's probably more of that going on than we may realize. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, that might have happened.
Just a question to you both, quickly.
Sorry, again.
Right, I'll start with you, Stu. What in devil's name is John Cabot, the lead, the gymnast? So he's an Olympic gymnast, right? What the hell is his motivation? Or why is he working for, I don't even know if it's the government or CIA. Why is a gymnast, an Olympic winning gymnast, somehow contracted or employed by the government to do what he's doing? So what is his motivation? I don't get it. I never understood why he is in any way, being that he's quite a slight and quite effeminate guy. He's not, he does look more like a gymnast than an action karate kung fu star. But yeah, what the hell's all that about?
It's funny you said, because I actually wrote down he had absolutely no motivation, and also he didn't, when he got briefed. I put it down as a plot flaw because he didn't really. He just kind of accepted it. I know we found out that his dad had been part of it, but he's explaining. The guy's briefing him is explaining the game to him, isn't he? And it doesn't sound good. I mean, I don't think it's going to take off the game, is it? Let's face it. And he's sort of going like, yeah, great, yeah, all right. When do I start? And it's a bit like, really? And the other thing that really made me smile, which ties into your question, is when he started his training, and then we got that massive montage, mainly of him walking up the stairs on his hands, which was a bit weird. Okay, he's a gymnast. He's obviously very athletic. You can see that, but he's being trained by these guys who are like killers, who are like really good fighters. And I just think, why don't they just send one of them? It doesn't make any sense. Like we have to find our best athlete in a non-combat discipline. You could have had any. Oh, we've got to find our best basketball player and train him in, like, I don't know, like UFC fighting or something. And it's just like why don't you pick someone who does combat sports? And then, as I say, there's all these people. There was those dudes, who were like could kill him in a second, and then you just use one of them, and it's like training them as gymnasts. It makes no sense, But I mean, maybe overthinking it slightly, but it made absolutely no sense. And I don't think I've seen a film where someone's walked up and down the stairs with their hands for about 9 minutes of screen time here.
There were a lot of fun montages, but there was a moment because some of the other participants in the game are fighting. They're all fighting, and there's one really big, massive kind of, I don't even know how to it's kind of like an end level boss. And at one point, he's fighting definitely an actor I've seen in other kung fu films. So he looks like a proper martial arts star, and he looks like he could take anyone in the film. But there's a moment where he's fighting this kind of big, kind of hench looking. He looks like a hockey player, basically, to me.
Oh, the blonde guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got that long shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember. He's won something, and he's quite famous, and then he ignores John Cabot, doesn't he? Every time he reaches out, hey man, in a really effeminate voice, hey man, I'm a real big fan, and he's like, ignores him completely. But when it comes to the fight, the kung fu expert is kicking him, punching him, and this guy's just taking it. It's just like bouncing off him, and he's continuously absorbing everything that this particularly nasty looking, as in like violent looking kung fu guy is doing. And then not that much further on in the film, he takes on John Cabot. And for some reason, John Cabot throws a few punches and kicks and knocks the guy back and knocks the guy over. And I'm like, hang on. So the guy who's literally the smallest, the shortest, and the most feminine of all the characters somehow manages to take out this big, hench wrestler dude, this violent hockey player. Kind of, I don't know, redneck he's a bit like. But actually, Imran, I did want to pick up. Did you notice that there's a lot of moments, really quite funny moments in the action sequences that are a bit like watching WWE, like watching.
Oh right, yes, of course, yeah. It's yeah. I mean, all of it is. I mean, they've obviously gone with gymnastics first, and into. I love the pommel horse in the middle of the town center is just glorious, and it's just fantastic. And yeah, he does loads of moonsaults and all kinds of wrestling relatedness. But that, I mean, the in terms of the combat parts, the pommel horse thing, that just seems again go on for about 7-8 minutes of him just going around kicking, and it's like these guys should just stop and throw something, like just stop running towards him one at a time. And then when he's in the alleyway and he's just like flipping round and round and round,
because he finds a random steel bar in the middle of this medieval town that is not going to have a suspended steel bar above everything.
Did you know that particular scene? The one thing I noticed, I think it was supposed to be an overflow pipe or something, wasn't it? But it was obviously a bar. Did you notice when the camera did a close up, he had like talc on his hands? Like yeah, it was really visible as well.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was really visible. Yeah.
I kind of amused myself with the fact that it's like obviously Hollywood has approached him and saying we're going to make you a star based on your Olympic goldness, and we want to make you a gymnast and use that in the film. And he's going to think, oh great, I can do all the gymnast stuff. That would be fun. And they'll say, oh no, I mean legally insurance won't cover you because you're an actor now. So we need to get the guy that came in second place to do all the gymnastic moments because you're not insured to do that. You're the actor now. So, oh no, the one thing I can't do.
Yeah.
But
what was his background, that guy? Was he actually, I assume...
Is he a gymnast?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
that's all legit. It's literally the same way that this gymnast got offered the opportunity to go to Parmistan and save the world. This gymnast got offered the opportunity to make a movie. It's literally that was the pitch meeting from Hollywood.
But going back to the gymnast, the thinly disguised gymnast equipment in the alleyway and stuff, they definitely thought of the stunts first, didn't they, and then wrote the story around it.
Yes.
It felt a little bit like they just were making it up as they go along, particularly some of the chase scenes. There was one bit where it went from it was like running down the street, then he was on like a raft or something, and then he was like fighting again. It was just like, hang on a minute, it was, they're just literally joining different action sequences together.
There was Scooby-Doo moments where it felt like they'd run up and down the same flight of stairs and down the same alley at least 4 times.
That's right.
But one of my favourite action sequences, he does, the pommel horse one, there's a great bit where he does several flips for no reason. Like there's no one attacking him. He just starts doing flips in front of them. But my favourite is, I think he's in a sort of fairly tight alley, and there's two guys attacking him, and he sort of does some kind of flip through the middle of them. He barely connects with one of them and doesn't connect with the other, who sort of falls back onto the wall and crouches down a bit, doesn't know what to do because for some reason the camera's still on him, and then just sort of gets back up again, looks sheepish, and then it cuts to the next scene. And
I think that might be my favorite moment in the entire film, because the two of them, the two villains, are walking away, so they can't see him, and you would think it would be easy to just creep up and nail him, but he chases after them doing cartwheels and flips, and then as he reaches them, it's the big one, and it's like, that was unnecessary.
It really is like the off the top rope flying into a group of people and then missing most of them in like professional wrestling. It was such a beautiful moment. But going back to, I think the pommel horse one and the bar is in basically the Resident Evil Crazies village. I love that.
That took a real dark tone. It was awesome. It lost me when it was the guy with the big apron, and you just kind of like, and you're like, oh, he's scary. Then he turned around, and then he had nothing behind, and that bit was like, oh, you changed the tone a little bit now. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but was it Crazy Town or something? Awesome. Yeah, that was great. That was super cool moment.
It was
basically where they send all their prisoners and mad people. But Stu, you shared a gif of this, your favorite.
No, it was Imran. Was
Imran. Oh, sorry.
The head turning round.
Right.
Yeah. Was that your story?
Yeah.
Double head. Yeah.
That was the most amazingly unnecessary bit in the entire film.
It got Twin Peaksy a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like it was, awesome.
Describe it.
Oh, okay. There's it's, I don't know. Normally, every other part of Palmerston is this blissfully happy Disney-esque place. Well, actually, do you mind if I just set Palmerston up in general before we get to the crazy town?
No,
Palmerston is.
Describe the dummy first, the dummy guy, because the visuals of it are insane.
Oh, the head! Like he's got like another head behind him, and I don't know if it is a dummy, if it's supposed to be like a dummy head that he's put on, or has he literally killed another guy and he's put his face on the back of his head? I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to be.
That could be it.
Yeah, I was
really slowly, and he's for some reason got white makeup on.
Yeah.
To make
and he just you think you're looking at his face, but then he turns around and it's like, oh, that's his face. So who the hell is that on the back of his head? Wow. It was great. It was a super cool kind of flip of everything that we had seen. Everything changes tone quite horrifically there, doesn't it?
Yeah. But why did they do it? What was the point?
They had
good.
Before we go on to setting up Palmerston, which you definitely need to do. I love the way that there was all windows everywhere of just random people kind of cackling and laughing or pointing or just acting as mad as they can. And for some reason, all the people there were heavily armed with pointy things and knives and cleavers for no. It didn't really, nothing really actually made sense about why they would all just attack him the moment.
Yeah, they don't seem to attack each other.
No.
So it's like someone new has turned up, so let's attack him for some reason.
Yeah.
There's no actual logic to it. That's true. We picked up on, but yeah.
And why...
Sorry. I was going to say, did you notice in that last scene as well, there was the slow motion stuff went on for a long time. It was almost like, what was it, 120 minutes or so? It was, no, was it as long as that?
I think it was like an hour and a half.
It was an hour, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it was almost like they hadn't quite filled their quota, so they stuck it on slow-mo for about 6 minutes, It was just like going on and on and on,
But he ended up, it was quite cool, a concept, right at the end of that segment. He's in a very narrow kind of crawl space between two walls. And he manages to get up almost to the top. But for some unknown reason, even though the ledge is literally just behind him, he tuckers out. He gets knackered and starts wheezing. And then one of these kind of like ninjas randomly decides to help him, because again, I think I have to explain this all the way along the game, where they have to run over different obstacle courses and up ropes and across bridges and across all these different things in this kind of game, whilst being pursued by people on horses with bows and arrows who can kill them at any time or throw spears at them. And all the way along are these I'm going to call them, they look like ninjas, but they look like ninjas who can't afford proper costumes. And they're marking the route and trying to tell the competitors where to go. And someone, even though they're supposed to reinforce the rules as well and kill anyone who ignores the rules. But yeah, right at the end of that scene, one of these guys just randomly helps him up in that situation, which I thought was touching, but a little bit random. Anyway, Parmesan, Imran, set that bad boy up, what that is and why it is.
Parmesan, just if you've not seen it, try and picture this global this cosmopolitan utopia that is Parmesan. Parmesan is a country that is clearly set in Eastern Europe. It's clearly modeled off Middle Eastern terrorists stereotypes. It's policed by an army of ninjas. It's ruled by Mel Brooks, who has an inexplicable Filipino daughter.
So, I'm glad you said that. I couldn't understand, how has he got an Asian daughter? It makes no sense when he looks like the guy from KFC. Anyway, sorry.
He's Mel Brooks. Like, he's Mel Brooks in every way. I don't understand how yeah, exactly. And it's like, wait, I don't understand what, and it is, they're clearly clinging to Middle Eastern stereotypes. Every Muslim's a terrorist kind of thing. You're doing that, but you've got ninjas. Like, why the ninjas don't make any sense, because we're in a whole other place now. And how did Mel Brooks get this job? And why does he have a Filipino daughter? It's actually a cosmopolitan utopia. And it's not presented as such, but it's a beautiful place.
But all the locals are all like, I know we've just talked about the crazies who are particularly nasty looking, but all the locals for some reason have got like teeth missing. They're all old.
And they don't explain that, do they? No, it's funny. Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
This utopia where everyone looks as though they've never been to a dentist, had a bath, or anything else that you'd think would go with it. But it also reminded me of Army of Darkness. It's that sort of medieval thing as well. But sorry, Imran,
No, that was my just sort of watching it. You're just trying to, I think Stu talked about like an identity crisis, like with the film. I think when you're looking at Parmesan, you're kind of like, these are just, you've plucked random stereotypes, thrown them together, and just sort of gone ta-da. So I thought that was funny, and again, in relation to the book, I'd be quite curious to know how Parmesan is portrayed. And we have a king who is ultimately portrayed as a good man. He's obviously been corrupted and deceived by our head villain, who we haven't discussed yet. But he's obviously like, he may be a good person, but he really seems to relish these games. Like, he's kind of like, yay, let's play. Who's going to die today? It's kind of like, oh, you're kind of killing innocent people. And the rule is, if you enter Parmesan, you have to play this game. I'm not sure every tourist who gets off the plane knows that. It's kind of like, oh, Parmesan, it sounds like fun. They have a water park. Let's go. You're here. You kind of need to play the game first. Oh, shoot. I had no idea.
I thought I just had to show my passport. I have to do a game where I can die as well. Is it?
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
You can imagine TripAdvisor, couldn't you? Terrible holiday, wouldn't go again. Although, actually, your description of Parmesan, Imran, if it ever comes up, I think you potentially could work for the tourist board of tourist information. Yeah,
there's a positive spin on there, isn't there?
Also, if I was wondering if Mel Brooks is the king, does that make him the big cheese of Parmesan?
Oh no!
Sorry,
had to be done.
Sorry.
And Parmesan will like rip off of. It sounds a bit plays into the Middle Eastern stereotype of Pakistan as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you think that's what they were getting? I don't know. I just
actually, I would have thought so, but I think Palmerston is in the 50s book, so I don't think I'm not sure
No, it
what the
wouldn't.
perception
I think
of
it's just a
Pakistan
made
would
up
have been back
name.
then. Yeah, I do
just
now.
thought it was good point. Yeah.
But from the film, I kind of thought, oh, this is getting a bit.
I just couldn't
funny.
get Parmesan out of my head when the way it's written and everything. It's just.
Can I talk a little bit about the Filipino daughter?
Yes, I thought she made me very sad. But you go ahead.
I bet you weren't sad when she whipped off her medieval clothes to reveal her Catwoman suit towards the end. But okay, so again, we talk about motivations and how these characters are here and doing it and doing what they're doing. So John Cabo meets her as some kind of undercover agent. So at first you think, she's a martial artist, possibly with gymnastic talents, we don't know, but she's supposed to be, have local knowledge, a kind of insider knowledge. She's like an undercover agent who knows the country. And then it kind of, I can't remember what comes first, but then it's revealed that the guy, Mel Brooks with the big tash, is her dad. Because at the first, she also, for some unknown reason, doesn't speak.
Yeah, and that's like her defining quality. She doesn't speak.
Yeah.
But then she decides to speak.
But then once she's in her own country, she does speak. She does.
When he woos her, he basically she blanks
says one line,
for a week, doesn't speak.
Yeah.
Then he does 6 somersaults, sleeps with her, and she speaks. It's a miracle.
Oh my God, that's how you get the ladies these days. Well, those days.
I'm stuck on roly polies at the moment, but I'm hoping to build up and go higher.
Soon as you've got the backward roll, you'll be in.
Just on the subject of their relationship, though, not a great deal of chemistry between them two. I mean, I know obviously her not speaking and everything, but it was actually quite painful to watch. And yeah,
but she did do lots of cheeky looks. She was very good at doing wine cheeky looks. But okay, expanding on the fact he woos her, and they're sort of she's basically the love interest. Then she's revealed. Obviously, he may have known this or they knew this, but it's revealed that the guy running the entire country is her dad. And then within probably we've only known her for about 20 minutes. She's being married off to a guy who's the villain of the piece, who looks a bit like is it Hercules from the TV series?
Good pick, yes. With Sorbo, is it Kevin Sorbo or something like that? Kevin something or other. Yes, good, nice.
But with facial hair, who doesn't actually seem like a bad guy, but yeah. The next thing we know, she's being betrothed. Let's get it right. Betrothed to him in a sort of arranged marriage, and she keeps giving cheeky looks to Cabo when they're having their feast, their big banquet. So it's almost as if, like, at that point, the Hercules guy becomes truly villainous. But obviously, he's obviously set up to be corrupting, as you said, corrupting Mel Brooks and wanting to take over the country. But there is also a classic moment where they somehow manage to force. It's not just the Running Man bit. We should explain, because you've kind of got the Hunger Games bit, but the Running Man bit is interestingly when, as is tradition in Parmesan, Parmesan. I did that on purpose. They let go of prisoners, and the prisoners then have to run in the game. But you'd think they have the same opportunity as all the other entrants, but they don't. For some reason, the other entrants, including John Cabo, are basically sat on a horse while I think it's 3 or 4 of them, run to their inevitable death. So for some reason, they're like the hors d'oeuvres to the Hunger Games, and more a Running Man, because they're all prisoners, and rather than get killed for their crimes, they get to run. But as you know, the Running Man, there is, even though it's kind of murky because in reality all the other Running Man contestants have died, but these guys have no chance, and they don't even dress it up really that they're going to have a chance before they get an arrow or a giant spear in their back. But yeah, that was weird. I was like, okay, why have we've got Running Man and then we've got Hunger Games almost in one section. But yeah, the brilliant part at the end where you realise that the daughter's trying to tell the dad what's going on, and that her husband to be is evil and corrupting and doing these things. In fact, I do have one short scene which kind of explains what Imran you were saying about Parmesan, where they're almost locked in a bubble. It's for some reason, even though it's set in the 80s, they're like in medieval times, and this kind of explains it a little bit. I hope I've got the right scene here. Here we go.
Don't be afraid. Tell the princess to meet me in the car.
It's a political marriage. Traditionally, the daughter of the Khan marries his closest aide.
Why can't he break with tradition?
He has already earned a lot of enemy for letting the 20s go unpunished.
The 20s?
The young people, they want our country to join the 20th century. It's funny, but this marriage, which is supposed to help unify our country, will tear it apart.
Why?
Samir is the leader of the faction trying to overthrow my father, but father refuses to believe it.
What's he gonna do?
Father plans to announce a new era for our country tomorrow after the game. An era that combines the best of the old and the new.
That sounds intelligent.
Yes, but Samir will make sure that tomorrow's game will be so deadly and so violent that no one will survive.
It's not gonna happen.
Don't play tomorrow.
I have to.
You'll get killed.
Wouldn't I be killed anyway? Do you think they're just gonna allow me to walk out of here? I'll win. Go.
You heard the man. He's gonna win.
When he said "I'll win," I heard like a scuffle noise. Did he do a backflip in that moment? It just felt like "I'll win."
I actually love the lead into that. He kidnaps a member of the staff, because this is before the game, I think the night before, and obviously they're in different parts of whatever medieval building they're all staying in, and he kidnaps a member of staff, gets them to tell the princess to meet him in the garden. But he kind of kidnaps her with a knife, and then he gives her the knife, tells her to do it, and she walks away with the knife and then goes and tells the princess to meet him in the garden. It's just like, why did he give her a knife? It's
like, can you hold this a minute? So
I don't know what to do with this, but
yeah.
I thought I felt so bad for the actress who plays this love interest, this princess. I mean, I think halfway into the film, I just kind of thought, God, women had it really, really shitty. Like in films of this ilk, where certainly this time period, it was just like, I think when he kind of just ends up sleeping with her after 30 seconds into their first conversation, after she's blanked him for a week, and he's like, I'm intrigued by you, does whatever 5 backflips or somersaults, and then it's like, well, that worked, and then they're now a couple, and then it's like she's just there as a character. It's like she's like the only female character in the entire film. She has about 50 words, and she's there to be owned and won. And it's just, you're watching it and it just kind of think, this is like, oh my God. Like, and I wouldn't have thought anything of it being a 10-year-old watching this film back then. It's just the way it was. And, but you kind of look at films now and you just think, Jesus, like horrific. I text Dan this earlier and he was like, sounds pretty good to me. But I'm joking. But it was just just really kind of quite a striking kind of like
Passive.
Jesus is
Yeah, these
just really
films-
shitty, really crummy.
quite uncomfortable viewing, aren't they? When I know
Yeah.
we're looking at it, the
Yeah.
whole film, but when you actually think about it, they are. Yeah.
But at least at the end, she threw off her medieval garbs to reveal. People are going to think I'm taking the mick. I'm not. She was honestly wearing a skin tight kind of catsuit in order to go from being, I don't know, the princess and trying to persuade her father what's really happening under his nose, and then because she convinces Mel Brooks they're under house arrest kind of thing, that the people aren't guarding them, they're actually they're prisoners. So yeah, she goes on a very brief, I would say probably 1 minute karate rampage to help them get out of the house. So that's, I suppose, the one minute bit of redemption, but not really. I mean, it's still pretty terrible throughout.
Yeah.
So Stu, I think you want to talk about his dad, don't you? Come on.
I do. Did I mention that? No, did I actually mention it?
No. Not
Oh,
properly.
right. I was going to say we haven't touched on that. Only in the sense of, I should have maybe said this at the start, but I feel like it was one of them films that tried to give you like everything it thought you wanted. Do you know what I mean? Like let's do a sort of father-son reunion type thing as well. Let's just throw that one in there as well. And it had again, it was an example of where it wasn't supposed to be funny, but the impact was just like hilarious, wasn't it? It was a bit like after all those years, it was like, oh, hi Dad, how are you? Didn't die then in the terrible game? No, I didn't actually. Oh, brilliant! And they just carry on, and then it was just had like no emotional impact whatsoever. Like completely fell flat.
He doesn't really mention his dad, though, does he? In the film, does he? Like,
No, I don't think so. There's nothing building up to that whatsoever.
At the start. So
yeah, but he doesn't like reminisce about his
No,
dad.
that's
Or
true.
He
But
doesn't
he
express
just
any kind of connection, or
just assumed he was dead, though, didn't he?
yeah.
No, doesn't he look longingly at his photo though at the start? When he gets his briefing for the game,
I may have missed
I'm
it.
sure there's like a picture of him and he goes like, your father would have, But so there was that. The other bit that really, again, not supposed to be funny, but when he brought him back, didn't he? Then he got an arrow in the back, didn't he? Again.
Actually, can I play that bit of audio? Because it's another funny, random.
But just the visual thing that really made me laugh.
I was cut down trying to cross a gorge on one of those ropes. Trees along the way broke my fall. I got this useless arm out of it. Zymir's men captured me and were going to use me as diplomatic bait.
I missed you, Dad.
It's great to see you. You'll never know.
That was literally an arrow hitting him in the back.
Is there a horse there? Or
the horse at the end.
Is that the sun?
That wasn't one of us, was it? Breathing. But no, the thing that made me laugh visually about that was, so they made out that he'd carried him on the back of the horse after he'd been shot in the back with an arrow for like miles, at the end of the film, and he still had the arrow in his back. Don't you think? I mean, I'm not a medical person.
He was alive, wasn't he? He wasn't dead.
I know, but I'm not a medical person. But I do think most people's reaction would be to try and pull that out, don't you? Or are you supposed to leave it in? I don't know.
Depends how deep, I guess. I mean,
know. If any doctors listening, please phone in. I don't know, but it just really made me laugh that he still had this big prop in his back.
Well, some of them they were chucking these enormous spears, and I don't know if you noticed, but there were times where you didn't actually see the spear because it was impossible. There's no way from the distance they were throwing them that they would be able to actually impale someone. But there were things like that where there were giant, enormous spears thrown at some of the extras, the characters that die quickly. But there was a lot of gunfire where they clearly had only a few segments where the blood caps could go off, and then large chunks of the film they're firing, so they've got enough money for the blanks, but they don't have any money for the blood caps. So you'd see some guy fire in the general direction of someone, and they would just go, oh, and fall over. Not even holding where it's been shot, but just literally fall over. Or you wouldn't see, you wouldn't see the angle where the bullet was coming from, but they would just fall over. So there was a lot of kind of tactical, trying to save a bit of film budget in some of the action films. This was mainly when they're running around the same set of steps about 20 times.
20 times, yeah. The other bit that made me laugh, do you remember that scene where they were really trying to take him out on one of the challenges? I think it was the one where he was going across the rope,
Yeah.
and he was like being pursued by like, loads of people. But just before that, no, there was one person chasing him. Just before that, this guy was evidently really good at killing people. He was like taking out everyone, and then when it got to his turn, he suddenly became really bad at it, and he was kind of like getting away from all of his attempts at trying to kill him, just because it wasn't part of it. They didn't want to kill him off, and it was just like, now, hang on a minute, about 2 minutes ago you was like an absolute marksman, and now it's just hilarious. It was like,
the rope. There was one classic bit where John Cabot is literally right at the top of the rope, and the bad guy decides to set fire to the rope.
Yeah,
So
exactly. He could have
Cabot
shot
had
him at that point, so they set fire to the rope just to do the check. Yeah.
climb up. And I think there was another bit where, I think there was a lot of bits where the bad guys, I can't remember if it was, no, it wasn't the main villain at that point, but the bad guys seemed to turn up as John Cabot's running out of shot, and then just fire with a machine gun exactly where he's just been.
Yeah.
Not. But yeah,
he was. Yeah.
But yeah, he did. You're right. He did turn into an incredibly bad aim and bad judgment when it came to John Cabot. It's like, I'm going to do something just as he's already completely at a distance where he's safe.
Yeah.
At this point.
And you mentioned the ninjas, like they.
Well,
but when they're going around again, like like if you see like a 10K fun run and you have like those marshals, in some scenes they seem to be like being really helpful, didn't they? Go like, come on, your turn. Yeah. And then in other scenes they're like, with no explanation. It's like, what is their job? What?
They were supposed to police it because the guys, the prisoners. I think it was the prisoners. There's one moment where, there's one moment right in the really weird, very short Running Man section where one of the guys pursuing them kills one of the prisoners before he gets onto the course.
Right.
I think it might have been the rope.
Yeah, but he's coming down.
He broke the rules.
He broke the rules. So then one of the others kills him. One of the other stewards or whatever they're called, the fun run stewards.
Fun run.
Because there's a classic bit where John Cabot runs up to one of them and goes, "He broke the rules. He broke the rules. Stop him!" And then the guy just sort of looks as if it's zero, no fucks given.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh.
Earlier on at the start, you were saying about, I think it was Dan saying about how this wasn't in the tourist guide and stuff. You could have had a really good subplot of like a couple of lost tourists with like a camera and stuff and a map. Like just as if they're doing like a city break or something.
Arrows flying at them.
Make them English as well. Eric Idle and someone. This isn't what we booked.
Or they think it's some kind of, they're going into like a battle reenactment. So they're walking casually through a battle reenactment with spears and arrows flying at them. None of them hit them, and they're just saying, "Oh, this is good, dear. This is very realistic." We've certainly got our money's worth out of this. Look at all the fire around us.
Sort of immersive experience.
Okay, I've got some notes. I don't think we've probably covered everything, but I'm going to do the final bits of my notes just so I can get it out of my system. Weird guy with knackered, scarred eye who looks like he's a Bond villain gets thwarted by a fire extinguisher. Well, the contents of the fire extinguisher. So yeah, I thought that was
That's very
brilliant.
specific, but for some reason I just don't remember that.
It was. I think it was.
In the director's cut.
No, no, right near the start, because I feel like before they've even got into the game and got onto the part of the island where it all kind of kicks off, the people that they're with, who are supposed to be helping them, double cross them. So I feel like everyone at the beginning, everyone seems to be double crossing everyone else. And the guy who's at the start, who I think I'm going to say CIA, he randomly turns up while they're being double crossed by the guys that are supposed to help them, with a machine gun, and kills them all. And is really like coy about it, as if like, oh, can't trust anyone, can we? You know,
that was random. That was very random. That bit, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think actually, Stu, you mentioned it, but where they're cutting to multiple action scenes, there's a completely unnecessary white water rafting scene that serves zero purpose. There's also a bit that it's like something out of either Blackadder or an Inspector Clouseau film, where there's a map where they're, I think right at the start, where they're planning what happens and where everything is on Parmistan, and it's a really rubbish map with really crap models. They're just they're just comically rubbish. I think we've said. I did say it. It also really reminds me of Flash Gordon for some reason. I don't really know why. I've mentioned that some of the ninjas have Devo traffic cones on their heads towards the end. Just someone obviously in the costume department was like, I know, I'm gonna change this up. And the princess just looks very guilty and naughty the whole film, covered that.
Guilty and naughty.
And the woman he takes hostage and gives a knife, for some reason looks like Gollum.
I forgot about her. Well, I remember the scene, but I forgot. Yeah, that was a bit strange as well. Like,
yes.
They were sort of trying to make her into a sort of bit witchy, wasn't she?
Yeah,
a bit strange. Yeah.
But out of the as I said, the Resident Evil meets Croydon bit is still my favourite. The Village of the Crazies, because the bit we missed, and I actually forgot about it till I looked at the note, is that there's a guy who he starts fighting with John, and then for some reason, well, no apparent reason, cuts off his own hand. Remember that bit?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That was
made no sense. It was like, wasn't there like a horrible close up of it or something?
And I'm wrapping up, I promise. Just a final few things, but I always look for, especially in 80s and 90s films, there's always taglines. There's catchphrases that either the villains do or the heroes do. For some reason, I don't think the hero did any, but the main villain, the Hercules-looking guy, says about 4 times, "Die, you bastard!" in a really kind of English American way. It's like, despite being in a medieval utopia. Yeah, I think we've already covered the naughty reveal of a catsuit.
For the third time.
Kind of my favourite bit of the film. But yeah, I love the way it ends with Dad arrowing his back on the back of a horse, doesn't die, and they got their early warning weapons satellite system. So it was all good. Because I didn't think they were going to get that.
Didn't it? Yeah, at the end. Didn't it say like what happened? It was a bit weird. That was a bit...
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they had
documentary and
they didn't even get it in the film. They had what was it like?
Yeah,
text
it was like
on the screen.
Yeah. I don't know why that was. Like sometimes that there's a need for that, isn't it? A bit like, I think, like the end of Stand By Me, where you hear like what happens to them all. I don't think that's text, but it's like a sort of narration thing, and it was almost a bit like they forgot to film it or something, and someone just whacked out a PowerPoint. And
it really was. It just made no sense to have more
like a last minute thing, didn't it? It really did. Yeah.
They were in the editing suite, and they were like, "Oh, fuck, we forgot to film this entire scene.
It was
where...
PowerPoint. I had to wait for PowerPoint to be invented to finish the film.
Well, okay, that is all of. I think that's all of my notes. Is there anything you guys else? Any other opinions? Any other thing you want to say about Gymkata before we wrap up?
I've got one, too, if I may.
Go for it.
We've fleetingly mentioned him, but I thought Richard Norton was pretty great. Probably the best part of the film, to be honest, as the kind of chief villain of the piece. And I'd looked him up, and he had such a, I don't know where I've seen him. I've seen him in something like very sort of obviously, but I mean, what an amazing career. Like he has done like stunt work and choreograph. He was originally security, and then he got into like becoming an actor. And he was a stuntman. I mean, he's done fight choreography for both of the Suicide Squad movies, as well as Mad Max Fury Road. He's done. He's had fighting scenes in movies by Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. Like he's started his own type of martial art as well as a form of BJJ, as well as something else that he started as well. He's got like 100 black belts in his own right. Passed away a few months ago this year, March 25. But what an amazing kind of career and guy he must have been. But I thought he was, again, and it's funny, he's sort of a little bit of a fish out of water actor, much like the lead was as well. But I thought he was the best thing in the film. I thought he was a great villain and looked great, and totally badass. And just to piggyback on what you had said about taglines, the poster, which we didn't mention, I was desperate to mention it. It says, so on the poster, which is him fly kicking two ninjas, the poster is a new kind of martial arts combat, the skill of gymnastics, the kill of karate. It's a pretty good tagline. It's a pretty good tagline. No one says it in the movie. But those are my final two thoughts. Snowball.
Only that I did enjoy it. I can't help thinking, if you I haven't read it, obviously, as we've said, but I can't help thinking if you went back to the book and made it again, you could probably make quite a good film, actually. Like
there's a lot of people that felt that. People like from reviews, it's like it's no one should read the book if you like Gymkata, and apparently
it's actually
completely different.
Quite a good concept for a film.
Yeah,
You've done a bit more modern, perhaps. And a lot of the production fell flat because the other thing I'd put written down, which I hadn't mentioned, was I felt like they didn't have enough extras. They were trying to do these really big scenes with like a few people running down the street with like really tight shots and stuff, But I feel like if you had a decent budget, modern sort of production techniques, and perhaps go back to the book that I haven't read, i.e. take out all the 80s stuff, you could probably make quite a good film.
They probably made them ninjas just so they could cover the faces, to be honest. Probably. To reuse as many people as they possibly could. That's probably why they made them ninjas.
That does make
I'm glad I've seen it, though. Do you know what I mean?
That's good.
I was actually, because you had this with Frog Dreaming, I was actually starting to wonder if I might have seen bits of it over the years, perhaps, maybe. Or, sometimes something feels familiar and you're not quite sure why. It might just be because it was a bit of a mismatch of lots of different films.
It's very much what I imagine your schooling life to be, Stuart, though.
Well, Sports Day.
Yeah.
Did have one particular
getting the girl,
Sports Day
beating
like
up
that,
ninjas.
Yeah, the egg and spoon race while people are firing arrows.
These people firing arrows at you. Yeah.
It is strange because you kind of feel like I feel like the setup, the actual race bit, sort of, they kind of abandon it in the middle, really, because it doesn't feel like, I don't know, especially when his dad turns up, it doesn't really. It just feels like there's loads of people trying to kill him. It doesn't feel like it's, Hunger Games anymore. It just feels like he's just wandering around, with people. Because I think there's one point right at the start, the Mel Brooks, when his his main aide, the bad guy, starts off on his horse towards John Cabot and the guys. And he's like, no, you can't go yet. It's like he broke all the rules just because he he really hated the fact John Cabot was boning his future wife. Anyway, any other thoughts, or are we finished on Gymkata?
I'm good.
Excellent. So, we've spoken a little bit about what film we're going to cover on the next Analogue Archives episode 3, and I think we're kind of loosely agreed that we're gonna have a go at Wedlock, which is a Rutger Hauer film, who, apart from being incredibly famous for Blade Runner in the 80s, he did a lot of, I'm going to say, straight to VHS films. I don't know if any of them were in the cinema, but he did. I think Blind Fury is one that's quite well known. And I did actually see this one when I was probably aged, I'm going to say about 9 or 10. And I loved it as a kid. I have not seen it since. And it has a very kind of dystopian, bad future vibe to it. I'm not going to go into it because I think we'll save that for the next episode, and we could all decide what we thought of another bad future film, because it probably this was when everything like RoboCop, Total Recall, Running Man, everything like that was coming out, and there was a million different kind of dystopian, bad future, bad tech, bad cyborg stuff coming out. But yeah, so we will tackle that in our next episode. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I hope seeing our faces, if you're watching us on video on YouTube, didn't scare you off. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again soon, hopefully.